Hello guys, it's Ben here from Next Gen Base, and as we can all see, we've got the frame rate graphs up once again, which can only mean that it's time for another comparison video. Going over some PlayStation 5 games, basically. The first one that we're going to take a look at today is Marvel's The Avengers. Now, this is running on the PS5, it's running in the 4K mode, and it locks to 30 frames a second when it's running in that 4K mode. However, if you go into the menu, switch that over to highest performance, you can see immediately that we've got quite a jump there, and then all of a sudden the frame rate locks to a solid 60 frames per second. This is something that wasn't possible on the PS4 Pro. It wasn't smooth, it wasn't stable at all. Even in the 4K mode, it kind of dipped into the low 20s or even lower at times. But the performance mode, the highest possible performance option, kind of locks at that solid 60 on the PS5. So if, obviously Marvel Avengers is getting a PS5 version, PS5 patch at some point. I think they've said they're going to delay it until next year. It's not going to be too bad. You can kind of, switch it to the performance mode and get the best out of it in terms of the frame rate. Or if you want to, if you're happy playing it at 30 frames a second, which I was, because it was relatively steady compared to the unlocked frame rate, then there we go. Next up, we have Killzone Shadowfall. This is obviously one of the PS4's launch titles. Again, it's not going to improve the resolution, so I think the resolution is possibly still stuck at around 1080p. I don't remember if they had a patch for this, but because of the fact that it was that unlocked frame rate, you are now getting a locked 60 frames a second, all the way through from beginning to end, with the exception of some cutscenes. Some of the cutscenes still render out at 30 frames a second. I think that is primarily because they are pre-rendered rather than in-engine. But yeah, if you're wanting to play Killzone Shadowfall again, by all means you can do it on the PS5 and get a solid 60. Next title that was requested, had a few people asking for this one, and we had access to it. That is the important thing when it comes to these, is the MediEvil Remake on the PS5, and as you can see here, again, solid, locked 60 frames a second. I think, if I remember rightly, this had a couple of issues on the PS4, but it is that locked 60 on PS5, primarily due to the unlocked frame rate or that 60 frames per second frame cap. So yeah, it's I don't really know what more to say about it. It's I played this through for about an hour, and yeah, it's solid. It didn't drop at all, and it's a decent game to boot. It's good fun to go back to MediEvil and relive your PS1 memories in glorious 60 frames a second. The next one was something that kind of intrigued me. This was Broforce. You can see there that this is installed on the PS5's SSD, which makes the loading times absolutely incredible. And also, it gets rid of that really annoying, like there was a bit of lag at the start when it jumped in. But yeah, this kind of gets rid of that when running on the PS5, and as you'd expect, solid, locked 60. You're not really going to have too many issues with Broforce running on your PS5. And we're moving into ones that I wasn't too sure about in terms of frame rates now, but at least on the PS4 and the Pro. But these kind of the next three games, they had that locked 30 frames a second on the PS4 Pro. So it's the Mafia trilogy, essentially. First game here, you've got Mafia. This is the opening area, the opening mission. If you'll excuse the rather wayward driving, the game runs at that locked 30 frames a second. I would suspect that this is one of the, these three particularly are titles that could see updates. It was, it's definitely not a technical thing. I mean, there was just a kind of original intent argument there to put into the PS4 versions. So now we're looking at Mafia 2. Mafia 2, obviously, again, that locked 30 frames a second. It's going to be soft capped, if you like. There will be that hard limit on the frame rate in the game. But again, doesn't waver, doesn't budge, and you can get a solid performance from that. Now, the next two games had this message come up when you booted them. So obviously this one is going to be Mafia 3, but you might experience unexpected issues while playing this on the PlayStation 5. So again, this is, you know, Mafia 3 opening mission. It's that solid 30 again. This did have some performance issues on the PS4 Pro, if I remember rightly. It didn't run incredibly well all the time, but at least in the early going, again, you've got to excuse me, I don't have a save to download for this one at the moment. I think I actually got rid of my save for it, but yeah, you know, you've got that solid 30 frames a second. So again, hopefully, Mafia, you know, the Mafia trilogy will get some sort of boost from the developers at Hangar 13. But yeah, on the whole, can't complain too much. 30 frames a second, absolutely solid. It's fine. It's just fine, honestly. You know, it's really good. Moving back into an unlocked frame rate title now. This also had the unexpected issues flag come up when I launched it, and you can see that here, just there. Look, you can see where I've slowed it down. That texture kind of flickering on Hellblade: Senua's Sacrifice. I don't know what's caused that, but I think this is one of the ones that pops up with that little message saying that there may potentially be problems. You can see a little bit of pop in there as well on some of the textures, but I mean, it runs really well. I think this had an unlocked frame rate on the PS4 Pro, and it wasn't great. You know, the frame rate kind of wavered all over the place. I remember playing this through and almost giving up on it at a couple of points because the performance was so awkward. So I might go back and actually, you know, pick this one up and finish it on the PS5, because it is that locked, beautiful, silky 60 frames a second. And I wouldn't really have expected anything else at this point. Another game that a lot of people kept asking for was Assassin's Creed Origins, or any of the Assassin's Creed games. And on the PS4, these are locked at 30 frames a second. They have a hard cap on them, so we're not going to get any performance benefits from these unless Ubisoft go back and unlock that frame rate. That's really all I can say about the Assassin's Creed titles. I think, especially on PS4 and PS4 Pro, they didn't unlock that frame rate. So if you want a 60 frames a second Assassin's Creed experience, you're going to have to get Valhalla, which I'm reliably informed performs admirably on the PS5, and you can see our testing on the Xbox Series X for that one, where we gave that one a go. But by far the two most requested titles that we've had on all of these videos have been the Nioh games. So I managed to get hold of a copy of both of them, and here we go. So this is the opening scene of Nioh. Again, I am not a Soulsborne player by any stretch of the imagination, and this kind of falls into that bracket, but this is playing in the cinematic mode, so this is the one that prioritises the resolution with a variable frame rate. But there's nothing variable about this, it just kind of locks to 60 on the PS5. So if you want to play Nioh at the highest resolution and highest possible frame rate until the remaster comes out, because that was, annoyingly, that was announced the day that I did all of this recording, so I managed to get hold of a copy of Nioh 2, and yeah, Sony kind of went, oh, and by the way, we're going to release remasters soon, so it might possibly render some of this unnecessary, but we shall see. So anyway, yes, Nioh runs at a locked 60 frames per second. But what about the sequel? Well, I am delighted to report that Nioh 2 also runs at a solid 60 frames a second in the cinematic mode. So this is once again that mode that prioritises the resolution and, you know, says that it runs at a variable frame rate that doesn't have a cap. So this tops out at 60 frames a second, at least, you know, that I can tell. As far as I'm aware, like, a lot of people have said, can you test XYZ at 120 frames a second? Now, I do have a TV that's capable of it, but I don't think, when it says that, you know, the frame rate is unlocked, I don't think that actually allows for anything over 60. I think it just kind of caps it at system level at 60 frames a second. I will have to try and do some some digging on that, but as far as I'm aware, 120 frames per second mode needs to be specifically patched into games or specifically coded into games, and I don't think we're going to see those in PS4 games. As possibly as nice as it would be, I know that on the Xbox, they've had to specifically update, like Halo, for example, with a 120 hertz mode or 120 frames per second mode. I know that Devil May Cry has a 120 FPS mode, but that is again kind of locked behind some actual coding, so it's not just unlocking the frame rate isn't just going to take that straight up to 120 frames a second, as far as my understanding goes. But that is going to do us for this round of testing. Honestly, don't know how many more of these we're going to be able to get done at the moment, primarily because we're sort of running out of games that have unlocked frame rates and the ability to go above what the PS4 Pro can do. But please do subscribe to the channel and drop us a like, leave us a comment, let us know what games you're willing to test out, or what games you want to give a go on your PS5 when you get it. And we'll see you guys soon. All right, take care, guys. Bye bye.